So for Bernie Sanders' campaign, I think that March 15th night where he lost Ohio, Florida, and the others, that was the original wound that was hard to close. And so if you remember, spoiler alert for people who've never watched Game of Thrones in their life, it's just from season 1, okay? When Khal Drogo got that wound in his chest, and it turned out it never recovered from it. New York was when the witch put the wrong hex on him or whatever it was. And no, I'm not talking about Hillary Clinton, okay?
Oh, God.
For Christ's sake, okay? It's a Game of Thrones analogy in regards to how Khal Drogo went down. And so once she had done that, it was over, right? And so unfortunately, I think that's how it was for Bernie Sanders in New York. But now this Pennsylvania loss is basically putting them in the fire. But wait. Now, if you know that Game of Thrones analogy, what comes out of that fire? They put dead bodies in this case, a political body, and out comes a dragon. A dragon so fierce, it pretty much conquers the world. I don't know how Game of Thrones ends. Don't tell me.
That's speculation.
Okay, but a very, very powerful dragon comes out instead of Khal Drogo. Okay, and so I feel that that Sanders, it's an apt analogy in that even if he doesn't win this, and it appears that he is not going to. Okay, that now there is one scenario in which he wins, right? But in all the other scenarios, given what has happened tonight, I don't think he's going to win the primaries. And so, but that doesn't mean that his movement lost. His movement's just getting started. So here's a movement that made up a 60-point national lead in 1 year. I mean, when I interviewed Bernie Sanders on this show, it was exactly a year before they had taken a poll where he was trailing by 62 points, I believe, okay? And he had no name recognition. She had all of the name recognition in the world. I've never seen a candidate run with more name recognition than Hillary Clinton. She had the entire Democratic machine behind her, and let's call it like it is. She had all of the mainstream establishment media behind her, cable news roaring behind her. Bernie Sanders is unelectable. Even though every poll indicated that he was more electable than her. Bernie Sanders is a socialist. Bernie Sanders is this, dismissive. You're going to punish the rich. You're going to go after the rich. You can't pay for your plans. And yes, they would mention emails every once in a while, but overall, the assumption that cable news gave you was that Hillary Clinton was the winner. That she was the winner before we even started counting votes. And I was in an Uber over the weekend, and the woman said, oh, I would have voted for Bernie Sanders. She lives in California. The primary is still coming up. She thought the race was over months ago because she saw cable news, and cable news told her it's already over. Now, at this point, it's a different situation. Was it over before March 15th? Hell no, it wasn't over. Was it over before New York? No, it was not over before New York, okay? Now with New York and Pennsylvania to Hillary Clinton, it's a different story. But with all of those structural disadvantages, which were massive in scale, right? You have to understand something. When I say Democratic machines behind her, what are the consequences of that? So in places like Rhode Island, the governor, who's a Hillary Clinton delegate, and the state attorney general, Hillary Clinton, or Secretary of State, I should say, Hillary Clinton delegate. They decided we're going to close down 2/3 of the polling stations, right? Now, in Rhode Island, it didn't make a difference. And it didn't make a difference in Arizona. And it did make a difference in very important places like New York, where there was a giant voter purge. And let's remember, the exit polling in New York was 52-48. It was for Hillary Clinton, but it was only a small 4-point lead. She won by 15 after every advantage was given to her. So I understand all those things. And the reason I'm telling you all this is not bitter, sour grapes at this point. I'm telling you all this because he came this close with all of those disadvantages. You know what that means? That means this tide is arising, okay? And yes, a dragon will come out of that fire, and it will consume the establishment.
Yeah.
And so they can celebrate today as Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton win big tonight, and they can feel all proud. Yes, we've got a totally pro-establishment Democrat and a billionaire on the other side. I mean, for all that they complain about Donald Trump, the guy's a billionaire out of Manhattan. He couldn't be more establishment.
Yeah.
Okay? So yes, tonight they celebrate, but we're coming. So, but you think Bernie Sanders, and by the way, this is what all the pundits think. They think, oh, well, Bernie Sanders is done now, so we're never going to see him again. Wrong.
Again,
wrong. Okay? Even if, as we suspect, he goes on to ultimately lose this fight, right? Bernie Sanders is not going to go quietly into that night. He fought for something. He's been fighting it for 40 years. I remember when I was on MSNBC. You know who you could always get on TV? Bernie Sanders. Was it because he loved the spotlight? No. He'd go out in the freezing cold in the middle of Vermont. I remember I interviewed him once. He's in this giant winter coat and he's freezing out there. Why? Because he wanted to get the message out. Because he had to tell the American people, there's income inequality. We've got to do something about it. This isn't right, right? You think that fire is going to burn out? You think he's going to be like every other politician? All right, great. Give me a secretary of something, right? As Trump would say, let me lead the Department of Environmental, right? You think he's just going to take a secretary post and be done with it? No, he's going to keep that fire burning. And he's going to keep on fighting. And I don't mean just in a primary or in an election. I mean for those same ideas that he's been fighting for 40 years. So even if you're in the camp, as I am, that tonight was decisive. Look, the only exception is she gets indicted before California, right? So maybe, I mean, there are a dozen FBI investigators looking into charging her as we speak. So that is your one possibility. But even if that doesn't happen and he loses this primary fight, I'm telling you right now, and I told you this 3 years ago, that Bernie Sanders could beat Hillary Clinton. And I was the only one saying it, and that's on the record, okay? So I'm telling you now, that dragon is coming. And so they think they got it all locked up tonight. They don't have any idea. This isn't the end for us. This is the beginning for us. For people who care, for progressives, for people who are going to get to the right solutions and fight for everybody. So let them celebrate tonight, because what they don't realize is they're celebrating the end of things as they were.